question that I have for you is, what is the absolute worst thing that's happened to you in your business life that actually became the best thing that could have happened to make you successful?
Ooh, that's pretty good. The worst thing that's happened, I think, in the beginning of my business, I tried to do everything. Like, that's a common mistake of entrepreneurs, right? But I especially had no business trying to do anything on the actual rehab or construction side of real estate. It's not me, right? I'm a deal maker. But when you first get in, you think, oh, I'm going to paint a house or whatever it is, right? Thankfully, this was early on. Like what I'll tell you, this was an early on mistake, right? Had I not learned this lesson, I would have made a lot more mistakes. But just trying to do everything myself. And my very first deal, I was still working a corporate job, doing my first deal, looking to jump out of that 9 to 5, and I botched everything on the house. Should have been about a $25,000-$30,000 profit, on a quick rehab. But I did everything myself, so I had to do everything twice. I did everything myself, and then I had to pay somebody to come in and do it all right.
Wow.
And so, and I'll give you an example. I mean, like stupid stuff, dude. Like really stupid stuff. Like I had a water heater that had a leak on top, so I just like sealed it with silicone. Myself, had no idea. Just dried it up and sealed it with silicone. I thought that'll do it, right? And I flooded the entire house. Like 3 days later, I flooded the entire house. So now the however many thousands of dollars I just spent on carpet, I've now either got to spend days and days drying it with air pushers underneath the carpet, or
tear it out, put on the
maybe
carpet.
tear it out, put on the carpet in again. And that was just one thing. That was just like one thing, and that was a comedy of errors in that first house. So what I learned there, the big mistake was having friends work for me, doing the work myself, looking for the cheapest guy to do the work. When I messed it up and finally admitted I couldn't do it, then my next mistake was hiring the cheapest guy to do it, right? So all those rookie mistakes, man, you could read the whole book of what to do in real estate, and I did the exact opposite. And I made $2,000. Thankfully, I was cash flow positive.
You still came out on positive on that.
$2,000, but it should have been $25,000 more than that, most likely, right? It was a pretty easy one to do looking back now. But even an easy job like that, when you do it the wrong way, you try to do it all yourself, or you get way out of your lane and start using silicone on top of water heaters or whatever I was doing, whatever made sense to me at the time to save a buck,
You still buy properties? You still do that?
I don't rehab anything right now. I mean, I would if the market, went away that I liked. I'd get back into that. But I'm not.
Still use carpet, or are you going all with something better?
Do I still use carpet?
Yeah. Is that?
No, pretty much I'm just doing paper transactions. So I'm not doing any kind of renovations or rehab. Sometimes we'll do, I do a lot of lease option or owner finance stuff. So when we move somebody in or out there, we'll do, light punch outs and stuff like that. But I'm not doing full scale rehabs at all. But yeah, like a deal or two a month. But it's usually, just something where somebody's come to me with cash, and I'm just putting the deal together, or something fell in my lap and I just flip it to one of my friends or something like that. So
right on.
Yeah, I don't have the crews anymore, but that is what I learned how to do effectively. Instead of doing all that stuff, I leaned into the psychology background, the relationships. Yep. I got really good at working with contractors and bringing them in and keeping them and not letting people steal them, because I treated them really well. Overpaid some, but
sometimes you have to overpay just to get.
But I did that strategically, yeah, and then did the same thing working with dozens of realtors, some really, really close, really tight, especially a lot of REO brokers back then that I developed great relationships with, and that helped a lot in terms of getting supply, and then just leaning into private money partners and just finding the who instead of the how.
So as far as we learned about your business thing, was anything in personal life that you found that was the worst thing that could have happened, but also made some of the best relationships you could have ever had? Because again, business is all relationships.
Yeah. I mean, in my personal life, the relationships prior to Lindsay not working out that seemed bad at the time, it was all part of the process, so definitely some things there. We adopted both of our kids, and there were some challenges, some unique challenges with both of those situations that turned out to be beautiful, but at the time were really challenging, really hard to go through. So definitely coming out the other side of those kinds of situations, they make sense, but they don't make sense at the time, right? So I think it's that's where it's important to have some kind of spiritual center to your life, because stuff's not going to make sense in the moment. Years later it does, you know, but 8 years ago when we, you know, adopted Penelope, there was a lot of things that were difficult, that weren't making sense, and now 8 years later I look back and, man, that was all supposed to happen just like that. As hard as some of that stuff was, it was supposed to work out just like that, and it's perfect and it's beautiful.